Risk of Rain 2 is a very popular game and one of my favourite games of all time, but the game is hard, very hard in fact. There are a lot of specific mechanics and tech that you need to learn in order to fully master this game, and even learning exactly what each item does takes time, and if you don't put that time into learning the game, it's not going to be fun. So it's no wonder that out of the thousands of positive reviews, there are going to be some people who don't enjoy the game as much as others, and that's what we're reading today. It's not a bad game mechanically or graphically, but for me it just ends up being a mind-numbing session of spamming / holding left click aimlessly at an annoying bullet hell mosh posh of exploding enemies. It's just not fun or exciting or satisfying in any regard in my experience. Risk of Rain 2 is sort of meant to be a mind-numbing game. It's just something casual to play, and whenever I play I just turn my brain off and watch a video or a show on my second monitor. But all the fun comes from the annoying bullet hell, as you so put it. When you're swarmed by hundreds of enemies, there is nothing smoother than making your way out of it alive, and this is from the fun RNG of getting good items to make your time easier. And if you don't have good items or don't use them in your gameplay effectively, it's super easy to be rushed by a mosh posh. And with only 1.5 hours on this game, I don't think this guy has even made it to the 4th level yet. Distinct lack of rain. I mean, he's not wrong. It's okay, but I much prefer the 2D gameplay. For those who don't know, the 2 in Risk of Rain 2 actually means something, and I love Risk of Rain 1, and with Risk of Rain Returns out now, I've been having a lot of fun on it. Most people like the game, but for people like me, it gets really repetitive and boring. See, to me, it doesn't make any sense to me to call this game repetitive, because, I mean, this is a roguelike. This isn't a tactical shooter. Most of the gameplay comes from the same loop of actions. Loot, kill some enemies, beat the boss, teleport. This is meant to be the point. But the only reason it doesn't feel repetitive is because the stages are always different and have many different types, loot placements are always random, and all the enemy spawns are random. The fun comes from good RNG and unlocking new achievements and skills for your characters. This game feels like it needs more DLC. New DLC coming soon, don't worry your sweet buttons. Please make it good, Gearbox. This game, oh my. Really easy for your friends to leave you behind if you aren't super aggressive picking up the items. Josh, come on Josh. Hit Eclipse 8, still hate Blind Pest. Remove Blind Pest from the game please. Blind Pest, fuck Blind Pests. Honestly, these reviews are valid. Just not very fun. Go play Deep Rock Galactic instead. Speaking of Deep Rock, go watch my most recent video where I talk about Deep Rock Galactic. I put a lot of effort into it, and actually, now that I have your attention, why don't you subscribe and leave a like? Okay, thank you. It's a fun game, but with a dead co-op player base, I cannot recommend it. Cool game for playing solo, definitely buy it if you want a single player game of this genre. Multiplayer with friends is terrible unless you install about 30 mods. Consider getting it if you and your friends have the patience to go through the whole process. Public multiplayer is garbage, avoid buying it if you planned on joining random online matches. After playing both multiplayer and solo, I do have to agree that the game is kind of more fun solo. With friends, everything just feels more chaotic, and I end up not even caring about completing our runs. And yes, if you were looking to play this game with the intention of joining public multiplayer lobbies, you might be disappointed. This game is amazing. Then why is this a negative review? Good game, however, Gearbox. Fuck Gearbox. Fuck you, Gearbox. We plan to deliver regular content updates and expansions to the game. You haven't updated the game once yet. Promises a second expansion, discontinues development and sells IP, relationship with Hopu Games, like, dislike. Everyone hates Gearbox, so I'm gonna too, Lamau. Love this game, but Hopu got acquired by Gearbox, and it seems development for it is dead. They'd rather make a remake of their first game than update the way more popular and played one. There's been almost nothing since the DLC came out and wasn't even that good, to be honest. Alright, this is a bit of a controversial topic. So Hopu Games, the developers of the Risk of Rain franchise, they sold the Risk of Rain IP. So Hopu Games will not be working on any more Risk of Rain games after Risk of Rain Returns, which has come out recently. But Hopu Games will be working on their own projects while Gearbox now works on Risk of Rain. And let's just say Gearbox doesn't have a good track record when it comes to delivering inspiring content to their games. But the issue doesn't really come from Gearbox as a whole, as they aren't all bad, having done good things with Half-Life and other products. But most complaints come from a lack of willingness to listen to fan input and criticism. I can see why most console players will be upset, as they don't really have the best support from Gearbox when it comes to the console port. But with the release of Risk of Rain Returns, they finally released the Survivors of the Void DLC for consoles. The way I see it, I believe that Risk of Rain 2 already has a very stable foundation, and with some of the easiest modding tools I've seen for a game, most of the content is already provided by the community for free, so for right now, content from Gearbox seems unnecessary. But with the upcoming Seekers of the Storm DLC, it's looking pretty hopeful. I ain't reading all that. I'm giving this game a negative review because I don't like it. I mean, at least he's honest. It's fun for a little bit, but eventually I just feel like my items are playing the game instead of me, and my inputs don't really matter besides running away from projectiles. It doesn't feel like you need to make that many decisions since you just pick up every item you find and occasionally choose between a few. For the most part, this is actually good criticism. Whenever I'm playing a really long run, I'll end up getting bored after about 2 hours and end up quitting to the main menu. A lot of your power comes from your items, and with every item being multiplicative, they end up making you more powerful than the ramping difficulty can keep up with. I mean, there are the scrappers and printers scattered around the maps that you can use to swap items for others if you want a specific build, which does allow you to have a lot more freedom over your items than you otherwise wouldn't. But even still, eventually you end up as the most powerful person in the universe just standing around while nothing gets close to you, and there's not really anything to combat this. I built this graph to show difficulty and items over time, and yeah, this just speaks for itself. Shit me, what did you just say? Get out, now. Wait for a sale, this game is so short and lacks fun for the price on here. Terraria has more content and stuff to do than this game, and it's 3 times cheaper. Alright, the reason Terraria has a lot more content and takes longer to complete is because there's an open world survival game. See, look at that. And Risk of Rain 2 is not meant to be completed in one playthrough. You reach a final boss in like the 5th level. This is to make runs feel more casual, and runs are usually completed in about 40 or 50 minutes of gameplay, if that. Risk of Rain 2 solely relies on the replayability of builds, character skills, and overall randomness of the game. Terraria, however, has hundreds of hours of content and a more linear progression in the form of many bosses. I completed my first Terraria playthrough in about 60 hours. It is literally impossible to compare these games, as they are different in literally every single way. And if you're still on the fence about getting either Risk of Rain 2 or Terraria, just get them both. They're fantastic. You offer to the shrine, but gain nothing. You offer to the shrine. Stop looking at negative reviews and go get mum's purse. What is your dumbass doing? Just get the game, SMH. Why do people do this? Risk of epilepsy. This game is really fun, but it's a major migraine trigger. Everything was flashing and blinding. The flashing lights are not only painful, but made me sick to my stomach. I have personally not had any issue with any of the flashing lights or colours, but for other not so fortunate individuals, I can see how this may be an issue. If you have problems with your sight, I'm sure there are some mods or a setting you can change to help, or at least tone it down a little. And the final review, add sex please.